Okay, so I just hit the record button. Hi everyone, welcome and thanks for joining this webinar. I'm Michael. For those of you who haven't seen me on any webinar or inside the academy yet, I'm a part of the group of technical leaders and CTOs who are excited to share some of our insights. And in the past, I've hired quite a lot of developers myself as a CTO back in Asia. And it was relatively easy, right? Because you are living and breathing technology. So as soon as a front-end developer comes, then you immediately know what to ask him or her. But then I realized after talking to some of the recruiters or some of my friends, I realized how difficult it actually is for people who lack the technical understanding, the solid technical foundation to recruit. And often people who say hired executive roles start recruiting developers, and eventually they struggle to be on the same level with developers, right? Like developer can immediately see that you have no clue what you talk about. So that's why we have actually started the Geek Recruiter Academy to help you adopt some of these skills, some of the technology understanding, some of the insights that actually you don't need to be able to code, right? Say in this case, front end, you don't need to be able to build websites, to actually ask good questions. So even that's why we organize this webinar. It's mostly for people who are inside the academy, but we also have it available for those of you who have the time to join live. So I welcome you again. And now you may be wondering why there is no technical recruiter here teaching you guys, technical recruiters. Well, it's precisely for the reason that I believe that technical leaders are best equipped to interview and assess developers. So that's why inside the academy, we have technical leaders, CTOs, the current CTOs or ex-CTOs, who are keen to share their insights. So we prepared the training plan, and this is part of the training. We also build our internal team, so we talk to developers on a daily basis, and these are precisely the insights I would like to share with you. So let's dive right in. Today, I don't know, it should take maybe 30, 40 minutes. I rather prefer keeping it short than way too long, and then you guys get bored. I also like to share insights from the real life, so no academics, not any kind of quotes from Wikipedia or so, but really what I've seen in the past or what I see today when we recruit developers to our teams. So I have an outline of what we can actually talk about today, and it's a lot. It's a lot. I have here also some of the questions you guys asked before you are registered to this webinar, so I'll answer some of those, if not all. There were quite a lot, maybe more than 10 questions, like very good questions. So we can cover those. What I would like to start with is actually a quick look at the technology map, so that you could actually see what front end really means. And we have here a map. Let me just open it quickly. The technology map, it's here. So you guys can see here a full overview of the frameworks and technologies, languages. For example, here you have highlighted JavaScript, right? So often JavaScript is seen as the front-end language, or that's actually how it started. Then Node.js came to allow JavaScript be used also on the backend side. But what is a common confusion is that you start seeing just the one programming language as a link to either backend or frontend, and this is frequently not the case, because even in PHP or with PHP you can build websites. So let's look at web. What is actually a web, and what languages could be used for web development? I stopped sharing for a while now, so you can see the whiteboard. So the way I look at it is you have backend, obviously you have front end. Well, this is something you already know, right? Otherwise you would not even be here. You have a design. design, which is a process of creating really beautiful design files, Photoshop, and so on. And say in smaller teams, you have a full stack developer who works both on backend and frontend. You may have a WordPress developer, and the WordPress developer is also working on both backend and frontend because WordPress is a content management systems. You can create a plugin on WordPress, so you work on the backend side, right? You create a plugin in WordPress, but then you also adjust the template that is visible to users. So frontend is the part that users could see or interact with, and backend is obviously something that is connected to database or to some other services. So that's backend, frontend. And the more developers specialize, the more the gap widens. So a full stack developer can do both at some level. You know, I can do both also, right? I'm not even a full stack developer, and I can work with backend systems, I can work with front-end systems, I can work with Photoshop, right? It's not rocket science. You can spend a few days just going through tutorials. We just need to have some solid digital skills, generic skills, and then you can specialize. And this is precisely what happens with the backend and front-end and full stack. So it starts with full stack. And a full stack developer who works with actually, can you guys see it? It looks like it's mirrored. Is it mirrored? Hold a sec. Yeah, now you should be able to see it, right? Is it? Hold a sec. So it was all right? Because I can see it mirrored. Okay, cool. So now you can see it. I'm not changing anything. Okay, cool. So coming back to the full stack, a full stack developer can do both. As soon as you have a full stack developer working with PHP, it's very common that a PHP developer can create a website, connect to database with a SQL language, right? Can connect to some additional services through an API. He or she can, I don't know, import a CSV file, you know, a flat file with some data from external system. And he can also write a website with some basic HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. These are some of the basic technologies used for frontend. On the backend side, you can use PHP or C# or a lot of languages that you saw just a while ago on the technology map. I'll open it again. So on the backend side, you could see even Ruby, right? You could see Python. You could use even C++. You can use on the backend side to connect to some APIs, process data, manage data, manage the flow, workflow, and so on. And then as soon as a team starts specializing, then this gap widens, right? So suddenly it's not a full stack developer anymore. It's a backend developer and it's a front-end developer, and they start specializing. So as soon as I interview a developer, I try to recognize how far in the specialization he is. So I see his skills on some scale, while, say, let me clean this up. So if I would use this scale, where on one hand you have this very, say, generic full stack developer, so the full stack developer could work with WordPress. You know, he can adjust the template. You can call him up and say, "Hey, I need to change the title on the website. Can you do it?" And obviously, he can do it. You could do it. Anyone could do it because today it's easy. And then the person who starts specializing in front-end development starts moving more towards this right side. So he was, say, hardcore hardcore front-end developer. And also, who is a hardcore front-end developer, right? When I talk to a developer, I try to ask questions that would give me answers, so that I can visualize, in my mind, this scale and say, okay, you are either a WordPress developer who is using some of the technologies occasionally, maybe once a month, on a very shallow level, or you are a hardcore developer going really deep in some of those technologies. So let me pick another color. So here, the full stack developer, obviously, he will know HTML. Like you guys are recruiters, and you obviously write job descriptions. Sometimes I see a requirement on the job description. We require a candidate to work with HTML, and I think like, wow, this is just doesn't make any sense to write a requirement to be able to work with HTML. It's like asking you to, I don't know, assign a document. Like everyone can do it, and HTML, like everyone can just write HTML. It's not even a proper language. It's just a markup language. So with HTML, it literally means that you have some text. Say this would be Michael, and then to make it strong, you type something before and after. So here you write strong, and after you write, and this is end strong. And that's it, right? And the browser, Chrome browser or Safari or Internet Explorer or whatever, will make this word bold. So that's it. That's not even a proper programming language. It's just a markup language. So everyone should know it. I wouldn't even ask. I would say it can even annoy a developer if you ask him such a basic thing. Like if, say, I would now ask you guys, hey, do you speak English? It's like, obviously you speak English to some level. And then if it would be important for me to know what is the level of English you are able to speak, then I start asking deeper questions. But not with HTML, that's obvious. Then here, obviously, the full stack developer can do some CSS. And again, as soon as you create a first website, which could be Hello World, you just make a font bold, not with the HTML markup, but with styles. And then you can say, hey, I know some CSS. And then some JavaScript. And then the question is, do you as the full stack developer using, say, WordPress page, use just jQuery? This would be, for example, for me, an indication, jQuery, that the developer is not very innovative or doesn't follow new trends, because jQuery was a big thing maybe 5 years ago. It was a big thing. People were crazy about jQuery. It was really great. There were not too many alternatives. I used it heavily when I was coding back then. But today, if you say, hey, I use jQuery, then I would say, well, maybe you haven't been following the newest, latest and greatest. So this is also one of the indicators. And then the developers start using, for example, JavaScript deeper. That they go deeper. So what could be the deeper skill set? So I have here a list of some of the things that developers usually use, and then again, what is the level? How often? So say a developer uses Gulp or SASS. Again, quite a lot of frameworks already come with some SASS, which SASS, you may know that it is style sheet language. So it builds the cascading style sheets faster. It automates some of the mundane things. So I can show you as an example from a real project. Let me share the screen again. Here I have some of the code. This is the code from our website, the GeekRouter website, and here you could see in the asset folder that there is a subfolder SCSS. So there are two flavors of SCSS. It could be SCSS or SCSS. It's just minor detail. But here, I hope you guys could see it here on the left, where I just expanded the folder. You could see that the template that we started using already came with a lot of files, right? You see all these files were here when we purchased the theme. You know, all these files, there is just so much files. And this is what some hardcore front-end developers wrote, and we just bought this. Then I came as a user and said, hey, now I need to adjust some of these styles, just a tiny little part of the styles. And I wrote this file, which has only 75 lines of code. So you could see that I wrote some styles, but by far not as many as the hardcore front-end developers usually do. So if someone would interview me and say, hey, do you know SASS or SCSS? And I would say, yeah, I know it. Yeah, I just wrote something. And if the technical recruiter wouldn't be skilled enough, then he would, you know, tick the box. Okay, he knows it. But you guys should know that you need to dig deeper, and you need to ask, hey, what is the level? Like, how often do you use it? How deep do you go? What is the code base? What is the purpose of the script you wrote? And in my case, I would just answer like, hey, I literally just needed to adjust one tiny little part on the website, and I wrote only 20 or 70 lines of script. And that's an indication that I'm not really living, breathing this part. While, you know, some other hardcore developer would say, hey, I use it on a daily basis. I use it to compile some of the scripts, and he would have 10 better answers than I have. So you guys need to be also careful when a developer answers, yeah, I use it, and you need to dig deeper. How do you use it? What do you use it for? These are the questions that are could show you the difference between a beginner front-end developer and a senior front-end developer. So in this case, you could see I also use it, but the level of my usage is really low. With this, I also demonstrate how easy these technologies are. So it doesn't mean that the developer who works only for 1 year with some of these technologies is a junior. You could really adopt these relatively quickly. So when I interview developers, I'm more interested in how much time they spend with particular technology, say per day. In this case, you know, is it 10 minutes per day when I just write 6 lines of code, or is it I specialize on this part and I spend 12 or 14 or 16 hours per day? Okay, so what are some others? For example, obviously React, right? And Redux. So you could immediately start asking a front-end developer, hey, what about React? Do you use React? Do you use Redux? So React is used to build user interface, right? Interactive user interface. So as soon as a user comes to a website, clicks on a button, you don't need to reload the whole page. You just adjust a part of the website that user interacts with. And Redux is a library that is used to store the state of the system. So as soon as you say enter in a field number 3 or a text, then it remembers, it connects to database, it saves some data, and then remembers the state of the web application. So some other could be, for example, Webpack or Babel. Webpack or Babel. So these two, and there are more, right? Like say hardcore or more senior developers who specialize on front-end development would use, for example, Webpack, because it manages dependencies. As soon as you have several libraries used on the front-end side, you need some management system. You don't need it if you just manage a WordPress site, then you don't care about Webpack, you don't care about Babel. But as soon as you spend the whole day every single day working with one website with multiple components, then a developer is very likely to use Webpack to manage dependencies. So again, I, for example, use during an interview, hey, do you use Gulp? Do you use Webpack? And developer could say, yeah, I use it. But then again, I dig deeper and I ask, how frequently? Why do you use it for? Who set it up? And this is also important. Who set it up? Sometimes you have a developer who comes and just takes whatever for granted without really knowing why is it set up that way, who managed it, what was the reason, and so on. You may not need that kind of a developer, especially when you start a new project. Say you have a client who needs someone to set it all up. So in that case, you need someone who is not just hardcore in a way that he spends full time working with the technology, but someone who already set up a similar system previously. So someone who can set up Webpack, someone who can set up Redux, someone who already knows how to set up Gulp, as an example. And in that case, you need to ask a developer you are hiring or recruiting, hey, did you set it up? Who set it up? What is the reason the compiler or the dependency manager is set up this way, or who set it up? You need to ask these kind of questions. So this is on the side of the technologies. There are a few more. Let me just look through my okay. For example, there could be one interesting. For example, Bootstrap. If you guys haven't heard of Bootstrap, it originally originated at Twitter. Twitter released Bootstrap as a template, which they used at Twitter, and now it's open source and anyone could use it. Actually, we also use it at Geekculture. You can download it for free or purchase some premium template for $20 or $30. So it's crazy how these days everything just dematerializes. Everything is just so cheap. So it's also easy to start working with some of these technologies. And Bootstrap makes it super easy for those guys who are very, very generic, like full stack developers. They could create easily a new website using Bootstrap as a template system. So hardcore developers may not use Bootstrap, because Bootstrap is especially for those who just want some rather generic website, nothing too much specialized. But these hardcore front-end developers usually even may start from scratch. So they write CSS, they write JavaScript, they use their own proprietary system, because every single little improvement or tweak is important. So having said that, I'll also write here that these front-end developers, the good front-end developers, are usually concerned about accessibility and second would be performance. So here, if you have a full stack developer who creates a website, manages backend, front end, it could be a new startup. In that case, especially if you have zero traffic, you don't really care too much about the performance. If you have a WordPress website, you may use some plugins to enable cache, but that's it. As soon as you have a growing company or a corporation, you have hundreds of thousands of visitors on the website, and then actually I stopped the sharing. And then yeah, sorry, I just noticed the message. Sorry. So again, full stack, hardcore, and accessibility, performance. So as soon as you have a website, say e-commerce website, which has tens or hundreds of thousands of visitors per day, then both accessibility and performance are very important, right? With 100,000, say, or with 1 million of visitors per day, every single percentage increase of conversion could make tens of thousands of dollars in revenue. So that's why the hardcore front-end developers start specializing in the performance and accessibility of the website, right? You also have backend developers who specialize on performance, but in that case, they specialize mostly on how to make the database query faster, how to connect to some third-party APIs faster. But these guys, the front-end developers, usually need to optimize the page load time. And I can show you what it actually means in practice. I'll show you on our website again. So let me open it and share the screen. Hold a sec. Okay, now how can I share? I need to share both. Okay, so I'll share the whole desktop. And now you guys see our website, right? And I have here another window which you can open in Chrome when you right-click, and down here is inspect. And this is one of the tools that the front-end developers use daily, especially those hardcore developers. Full stack developers, WordPress developers, not that much, but those who specialize, this is their daily tool. So let me open it also for you. And in this tool, on top, you have network. You need to reload the page to see the effect. So here you could see how everything on the page, on the front-end page, loads. You could actually see how it loads the website. So here, can you guys see it? I hope you can. I'll make it a little bigger. So you could see how, I reloaded the page. I requested the page https://geekrecruiter.com. It returned some status, and then some additional files started loading, like this CSS file, or some JavaScript file is here, cookie consent, or I don't know, analytic file, or lots of JavaScript files. So you could also see it here on a timeline that I requested the page. It took 1 second to return, say, these 3 files, and then another few seconds. Oh no, I need to do it this way. And then more and more files came after 2 seconds, and then more and more files after 3 seconds and 4 seconds. So I hope you could see it. Here is also some waterfall like visualization of it. So you could see that this file loaded within 773 milliseconds. So now this doesn't matter as much. So what I just wanted to show is what a front-end developer does when he focuses on performance. So this is what he analyzes. This is, say, his or her website. He or she opens it and says, okay, so the whole website loads in 3 minutes, 3 seconds, 3.29 seconds. And the goal would be to decrease the time to, say, 2.99. So that's what the front-end developer, the hardcore developer, would work on. He would use all these tools, all the like libraries, Gulp, Webpack, whatnot, to optimize the speed, the performance. So this is, now we are talking about performance. This is one of the jobs of a front-end developer. And a good front-end developer would have lots of experience in this. So that's what I would dive deeper during an interview with a developer. I would start asking questions like, hey, what is the last page you have optimized? What was the speed, the gain that you managed to increase? What was the reason? How did you do it? What kind of tools did you use? As soon as you talk to a full stack developer who just set up a website, he will have no good answer. As soon as you talk to some hardcore developer, he will say, oh yeah, I spent 2 weeks on that task, and this is what I did, and I connected with the system, and I used this library to minimize CSS files. which is also important. I'll write it here. So there are some tools to minify JavaScript and CSS, and that's something the hardcore developers use usually. Accessibility, also very important, especially these days. You start with mobile first. It's more than 50% of users who, let me close it. It's more than 50% of users who visit websites on mobile. So a great front-end developer starts building mobile first website and only then optimizing for desktop. So this is again what you can ask. Hey, what do you do to increase accessibility of the website, either for mobile users or it could be for disabled people? You know, what are some of the techniques? And then the developer should have some good answer, right? Like he might have I don't know, used some of the libraries to allow people with reading disabilities to listen to the text or whatnot. I don't even know what could the tools be. That's maybe something we could look later on. But certainly the mobile first could be the one of the leading insights and performance tools to minify the CSS and JavaScript files. So this is what I wanted to highlight, you know, accessibility performance. Let me look through my notes briefly. It's already 11:33, right? There is so much more I would like to share with you guys. Do you still have some time? Should I give it another 5-10 minutes? We have here, I have here actually a video. I recorded a quick video. If you want, I can show you. I think it's only 4 or 5 minutes long. It's only 4 minutes. So let me play the discussion with the front-end developer. He's a web designer, Roman. He works as, I would say he's somewhere, well, maybe somewhere here, right? He's not too hardcore, but he's certainly not a full stack generic developer. So you'll be able to see what he also thinks about some of the questions you guys can start asking developers. So let me share that screen. Where it is? Roman, where are you? Here. Okay. How can recruiters identify senior developers, especially when, say, everyone uses the same technology? You know, everyone.
Oh yeah. So how you can maybe identify the experience level?
Yes. How would you identify? Say if you would be interviewing a front-end developer, and there are two developers, and both of them say, "Hey, I use Webpack and Gulp," and
there's a simple question: how do you use it? And if there's a short answer like I do it to process my CSS and JavaScript files to the one chunk that I can load up in my frontend, then that's the kind of loss level, and you will see. So there, it's just about that simple question: what do you use it for, and how do you work with it? And you can see what depth the developer has with the tool.
So just to clarify now for the recruiters, with the example of Webpack, the developers who would use it only to compile a few files to one file use it on the lowest level, right? This is just
right.
So that everyone should use.
Just the surface,
just the surface, and then those who say use it to, I don't know, process different, I don't know, files or merge, I don't know, maybe you can elaborate what is the more advanced way?
Maybe splitting the code base to more chunks and loading them as needed in the parts of application you actually use. So you can have like homepage where you use module 1 and 3, And then on the page for products, you use something different, and you can configure Webpack so it loads on demand what you need, and then you need to set it up so it's even optimized, and you can set up caching and such and such and such. So you can really tailor it to the best level of performance, and you don't need to load up just one big JavaScript file which contains everything for the whole site, whether you need 10% or 50% of it. So,
and this is actually a very good example, because it I can totally relate to what you are saying on some of the web pages I create. I'm not a front-end developer. I just use it on the surface level, right? And I use it exactly this way, that I just compile everything to one file, and then on every single site, I request the one huge file, which could be 500 kilobytes or 1 megabyte. And that's the surface level, right? But
but depends. That depends on the scope of the project. Because many times that's enough to do. If e-commerce project too sometimes don't need to split the JavaScript code base so much, because you just use some simple JavaScript to make the Ajax work and something like that, and to make some drop downs and autocompletes and something like that, and the final JavaScript file is really small. So if you can keep it small and performant, you actually don't need to do that.
Yeah, especially say if you have only 2-3 pages on the website, then maybe there is no need to split it. When you are working with a B2B application or some software as a service application with really advanced JavaScript functionality, then you may want to split it, and then you need to go deeper, not just on the surface level, but to go deeper. So this is a very interesting case, and insight also for the recruiters.
Okay, so that was what Roman thought. I hope you guys could hear it. So I also visualized it here a little. He mentioned the surface level and the deep level, and that's pretty much what we talked about with the full stack and the front end hardcore. This is a great way to label it. Do you know these technologies on a surface level? If yes, that's fine. But if you are looking for someone to join some e-commerce, store, it could be some high-performing store with lots of users, as I mentioned. Then you need to have someone with deep level, and that comes back to the hiring manager discussions, which I'm sure you guys have on a daily basis. So you need to also be able to talk to the hiring managers and ask them these questions. Hey, whom do you actually need? Do you need someone with the level of Gulp and Webpack on a surface level? Is everything set up on your side? Does he just need to come and start using whatever was prepared? Or are you looking for someone with a strong level, deep level of these technologies, because you either need to set it up from scratch, or you have high-performing B2B software as a service, or you have some e-commerce website with lots of users. So this is one of the takeaways, especially great, so you can visualize the differences. As I mentioned, this is something that comes sort of natural to the technical leaders. As also when I ask this question, say Roman as a front-end developer, like without any preparation, he is able to say, hey, when I interview a developer, I ask this and this and this. And this is something we need to teach you guys as technical recruiters, because otherwise all the developers will be just looking at you like, hey, you don't know, you don't understand. But you can learn relatively quickly if you start looking at it from the same angle and that you step into the technical leader's shoes, maybe for a day or two. Okay, maybe one last thing before we wrap it up, and I could actually answer some of the questions. I wanted to give you one more hint how to recognize a senior developer. And the senior developer would use templates. You know, some templating engine, and I could show you what a templating engine actually is. It's not required, but it's common for a front-end developer to know one of the templating engines. And this is one, for example, here, when you could see this is HTML markup, right? There is a section, there is a div. I hope you guys could see it. This is from our blog. There is, you know, some title. H1 means heading one. But here, what is important here, there is a templating system used. So the templating system means that even a front-end developer can use some of the backend functions. So, for example, to go through a list of, say, blog posts that are stored somewhere. So, for example, you could use here something like if, then, or and if. You know, you can assign a variable. So this is say, a next level for a front-end developer. Certainly, the full stack developer may know it to some extent. They may actually use it because they work with both. A beginner, junior developer may not know it all because he only focuses on HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And this is something else. You know, it's not HTML, it's not JavaScript, it's not CSS. It's a template engine. So maybe this is something I would need to follow up later, because we would need maybe 10, 15 minutes just to go deeper into this. I just wanted to highlight, because this is something you can easily ask during an interview with a developer. Hey, do you use any templating engines? Like, for example, our website, the Geek Recruiter, is based on Jekyll. Jekyll is developed by the founder of GitHub. So also GitHub uses Jekyll for their wiki pages. So as soon as you go to even if you go to Geek Recruiter, you would see, for example, list of blogs or list of webinars, list of whatever. So the list is generated with these templates that you could see here. But let's not go into too many details. You may ask this question during an interview with a developer, and you could immediately see. Yeah, I need to close the screen. Yeah, thanks for the reminder, Anna. So I just wrote templates Jekyll. Okay, Jekyll. Okay, let me look at a question or two. Thanks again, guys, for sending these questions. There is so much to talk about. Just if I look at the whole funnel, how to hire front-end developers, you know, I would have several questions, like how to source them, how to interview them, how to attract them, how to assess them. You know, like there are lots of subsections, and actually inside the academy we have more covered around these topics. So we cannot really talk about everything here. Just for example, Petra had a question, how to attract the talents. And I think one of the best ways to attract developers is well, to know what you are talking about. And then here, let me clean this up. And I also advise to CTOs, I consult to CEOs when they are building their teams. So here I would actually first answer, it depends who asks. So how to attract the talents. If this is you and you are a recruiter, or this is you and this is a CTO from a company, they would get two different answers. But both are important. Both are important because you cannot really attract talents unless the CTO knows what he or she is doing. So what does it mean in practice? So here, what helps to attract talents is when there are best practices. So, I mean, software development best practices in place. What also helps is if the company has like already a few A players in the team. Also, it's too obvious. I'll not even write there. What helps is to have, for example, continuous integration and continuous delivery set up. So continuous integration, continuous delivery is another topic we could talk about for the next hour or so. You should be able to ask the CTO, hey, on a scale from 0 to 10, how confident are you that you use the software development best practices? And then he may say, oh, we don't even use, and this is like no jokes. I talk to CTOs who don't even use Jira. And I'm like, how can you attract the talents if you don't even use Jira? If you don't have continuous integration, if you don't use automated tests, for example. So this is something that attracts developers, and there is more. We can talk about it in a follow-up webinar. I think this would be your role going forward, and certainly is mine or some of the mentors inside the Geek Culture Academy. We help the CTOs with adjusting their development workflow, with implementing some of the best practices so that they attract the talents. Because talented developers, well, they just don't want to work in any company, especially if they can choose. So they want to go to a company that uses the best practices, has a clearly defined responsibilities, roles, uses tests, automation, continuous delivery, and so on. So if a recruiter asks, then I think here it's very important if you know what you are talking about. So if you have technical background, or, well, it certainly helps to have technical background. I just write it like background. What would help is if you have at least technical understanding. So with background, I mean that you have really coded for 5 years, and then it's easy, equally as it would be for me or anyone. It may not be an option, because if you haven't coded for like last 5 years, you will not start. So you could cross this one, but you remain with technical understanding. And then, it certainly helps to understand the foundation. Like, for example, one of the courses in the Geek Culture Academy is all about the basics, the foundation. What is continuous integration? What is continuous delivery? What is Scrum? What is Agile? Why do teams do stand-ups? What is the difference between project manager and product owner? And all these things that you just need to know anytime you wake up at midnight. Okay, so technical understanding helps. And then what helps is to find a way how to communicate what really matters. Communicate what matters. CWM, I just made this up. So communicate what matters. I've seen, as an example, one of the CTOs I advise had a super long job description. I'm like, why do you even have all these crap written here? We can just write, hey, it's PHP, we use Symfony framework, we allow 1 day home office, we have office in this and this area. And these are 4 or 5 important things that matter. And even Symfony is not as important. A developer who uses Laravel could learn Symfony within 2-3 weeks. So it's not a deal breaker. So what is a deal breaker is the language. So you would not hire a Ruby developer for PHP, right? You could, but it doesn't make sense to write all these, like, we require candidates with strong communicational skills. Like, this is just like ridiculous, right? And this is actually, again, one of the modules. I don't want to promote the academy too much, but this is what we have inside the academy, like how to even compose a job description, what to write, what is important, what to just drop. And during some of the sessions, I just go through a set of job job descriptions, and I say, hey, this is important, this is not important, and we cut it. So a long story short, how to attract talents. First, make sure that the company you hire for already uses the best practices, because otherwise you can just hire B players. And make sure you have solid technical understanding, and communicate what matters. I almost forgot what this CWM means. It's funny, right? Okay, we have maybe time for 1-2 more questions. Let me go through it. Why sometimes we are talking about React as a framework, another time as a library? What is correct? What is the difference? Well, let's not spend too much time on this question, because I would say it doesn't really matter. In general, the difference between a framework and a library is that the framework is something that gives you a certain structure, right? It gives you download a framework from internet. It may include dozens, if not hundreds of files, and then you as a developer come and you start filling some blanks. You say, okay, here we add this and here we add that. Okay, so a framework gives you, it's like a building. You walk in a building, you already have the walls, and you furnish an office within the building. So that's how you could see a framework. While the library is slightly different. So you work in some system. You could have a framework also, and then you write something and you say, hey, this is a function that could be already written by someone else. It could be, say, something for currency exchange, or it could be something to, like, there are just millions of libraries out there, something to create a PDF from a website. So we say, hey, how about I embed a library from the internet, so you could download from npm, like Node Package Manager or Brew or wherever. So you embed it and then you keep writing as is. So in other words, a library doesn't change the whole structure. It doesn't impose any particular structure. And React came a few years ago as a new lightweight solution. So they started branding it as hey, we are not like all those huge systems. We are fresh and we are tiny little, and anyone can start using us, and we are a library. Yeah, because libraries are cool, and frameworks are usually seen as, like YE or Zend, or these frameworks are just way too huge and robust, and people just don't like using them because it's too difficult to learn. So it may be one of the reasons why the founders of React starting promoting it as a library, like, hey, we are so lightweight, so cool and fun to use it. It was actually Facebook who released it. So they started branding themselves as a library. So if you go to GitHub, it's written, hey, we are a library. We may follow, what they what they write. If they say, hey, we are a library, then maybe they know what they are talking about. Some say, hey, it's also a framework because it imposes some structure. I would say it just doesn't matter. It's just a label. Is it a framework, a library? I was even actually searching beforehand just to make it clear, and there is no clear answer. Like, people are arguing here and there. So I think it's more important to understand what's the difference between a framework that sets some frame and a library that could be embedded here and there, even within a framework. And it's not as important to know if React is a library framework. Okay, Rohit was asking, hey, I have a very limited resource pool. Well, that's a fact. It's not a question really. I think I would be asking why the pool is limited. Is it because you cannot attract people to leave you email? Maybe I would go again to, it's not like, if I look at my pool, it's not limited. I would say there's abundance of developers who want to join cool companies, who want to work with cool recruiters. So I would be looking at your personal branding. I would be looking at how can you create your own database or subscribers. How can you position yourself as a pro recruiter? And maybe this is again something we could help you with. We want to even issue certificates to really great recruiters as soon as you pass some of the courses. So this is actually maybe something that could help you with the personal brand eventually, and the perception of developers, to have a larger pool of developers. Maybe we could talk this later. Okay, how to increase response rate is a question that asked Carlos. Well, how to increase the response rate? Again, if I use the example of the CTO that sent me the super long job description, well, who on earth would read it? Like no one. I cannot really send it on LinkedIn. I cannot like a developer who receives 20, 30, 40 job offers per week will not read it, right? You need to shorten it. And this is precisely what I do when I'm looking for some developers, right? Like I'm not sending them, hey, I'm looking for someone who is open-minded and agile and is willing to work in a fast-paced startup. And like this just doesn't matter in the first initial stage. You just want, hey, I'm looking for a PHP developer with strong Laravel experience. You don't want someone who works with YE because YE is, say, more obsolete, or you are looking for a DevOps engineer, or so you just categorize it and then focus on what matters, what the developers really want. Here, what we actually plan to organize is a session with multiple developers who would be talking about what attracts them. So they usually, even when I ask them, they usually say, hey, I just want to know what's the minimum salary because I have received so many offers, and I don't even respond to those that come with no price tag. So this would be one of the things to add. And second, I would say it helps if you either state it's a startup because there is a lot of opportunity to learn, or you write, hey, this is a corporation, everything is well established, and they're looking for someone to, I don't know, to work on a scalable system, or so you find an interesting angle that attracts. It could be a client who works with legacy system, which I would say it's good to communicate it transparently. Hey, we have someone, it's a corporation, it's 6 years old system, but we offer you after the 12-month period a holiday in Thailand. And this is something I've used in the past. It worked tremendously well. So why not to go out of the standard routine and maybe use some of these methods to attract developers? Well, of course, you need to get the approval of the hiring manager, or maybe you need to pay the holiday eventually from your company budget. But certainly in this case, it increased our pool of candidates like 5-fold. Okay, Matya asked, what's my favorite framework? Do you test your code? And well, what is my favorite framework? I don't have any. I'm not a front-end developer as such. I'm on a scale. I'm somewhere here, the full stack developer who can do literally anything, but on a very shallow level. I focused in the past more on leading teams. Eventually, it's great to know what they work on, but I don't really have any favorite tool, framework, testing framework. You guys should know some of the frameworks so that you can ask recruiters. So this is a question you could ask during an interview. What is a framework? What is a framework? Well, I wouldn't say, like, it's not a color, right? Like my favorite color is orange, but do I have a favorite framework? I would maybe ask rather like, what is the framework you used for the last project, if any, and if not, why not? Was it your decision, or was it the decision of your manager? So there is like Mocha or Jest, right? Okay, guys, it's really a lot of time passed. It's already 12 here in Bratislava. We had maybe 1-2 more questions. How to know what is attractive for front-end developers by Clara. Well, if I would sum it up with a few sentences, I would say it's, well, they like working with new systems and that are, or old systems that are well maintained. So great developers don't really want to go work on a system like legacy system that is full of bugs, that is not taken care of. There is no unit tests. There are no automation tests. There was no refactoring in years, right? A great developer wants to come to something that is well documented, or at least documented into some on some level. So I would keep it short this way. It's attractive if the company uses already some of the like interesting stacks, like React, Redux for state management, right? Tests framework like a Mocha as a test framework wouldn't hurt, or just yes, you know, I'll just write it here, yes, or Mocha. So some of these tools would only help; they wouldn't hurt. Okay, I think we've covered all the questions that I wanted to cover. Let me look at this list. Like I had a list of all the topics to talk about, and I think we covered LinkedIn profiles. No, we haven't looked at LinkedIn profiles. Well, this is something we do also inside the academy. We look at some of the LinkedIn profiles. I comment on them. We look at what is interesting, what can we learn from it, and some of the buzzwords, some of the frameworks we could see. Okay, we looked at our web. We talked about accessibility and performance as the goals of the more advanced developers. We've mentioned jQuery as the more obsolete. We talked about, well, we've covered pretty much everything I wanted to cover. It just took a little longer. So if you guys are still here, I'm really glad that you've made it up to the end. I can only invite you to the next webinar. Next time we have how to hire C# developers. Last week we talked about how to hire JavaScript developers. This replay, even the replay from this webinar will be available for the next, I don't know, 24 or 40 hours or so. If you have any question, maybe you have last 10 seconds to type it. Otherwise, I wish you a wonderful day. Enjoy lunch if you are somewhere around. Carlos says thanks a lot. So see you next week. Have a wonderful day. Cheers, everyone.